Woodrow Wilson would firmly establish its reputation as an unreconstructed Southerner after he hosted the screening of a film at the White House during the winter of 1915. That infamous picture was titled The Birth of a Nation, directed by D.W. Griffith. The 3-hour saga, fictionalizing the history of the Civil War and Reconstruction, was a pioneering artistic achievement in the history of cinema, but it was also a monumentally racist piece of lost cause propaganda. It sought to transform the Ku Klux Klan from terrorists into heroic vigilantes, protecting the country from the perils of racial equality.
Birth of a Nation marked not only the arrival of a new medium of communication, and that being cinema, but the way that that new medium could be deployed to further the old biases of American society. And African Americans immediately recognize what the dangers are implicit in this. It's not coincidental that there's a scene in which there's a young white woman who is being pursued by this rapacious black man. It's actually a white actor in blackface. And she hurls herself off of a cliff rather than be so defiled. This was meant to strike directly at a peculiar part of the psychology of white men of the South and beyond, and them understanding that their fundamental role in life was the protection and preservation of white womanhood from black people.
The Birth of a Nation really is this amazing, big, gigantic, epic film that fixes a certain story of the Civil War and Reconstruction in the minds of the American public. And that story is that black people were too lazy and ignorant to fully master the citizenship that they were offered by Reconstruction.
There's a series of scenes in Birth of a Nation that are supposed to be taking place in the South Carolina legislature during Reconstruction. There's a title card that says this is a facsimile of something that really happened. And then it shows black legislators doing all of these things that are kind of desecrating any kind of dignified political process. They put their feet on the desks, they're eating fried chicken, they're swigging out of a flask. It's, to me, one of the absolute worst of the many horrible scenes in Birth of a Nation, because it's denigrating everything to do with African Americans' entry into politics. And it's reinforcing this idea that the entire Reconstruction experiment was a disaster, was a mistake. And the reality is, of course, that was not how it was.
The initial reception is rapturous. The film is shown to sold-out audiences, not simply in the South, but around the country and in major northern cities. The film, not surprisingly, spawns a rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, which had actually died out in the 19th century, and they adopt the burning cross as part of the iconography. Prior to this, the Ku Klux Klan had no such ritual.
You can get a sense of the impact of Birth of a Nation by seeing how strongly the NAACP opposed it. They picketed.
There's a widespread sense of outrage about Birth of a Nation, particularly with respect to the screening of it at the White House. There are numerous op-eds written against it. There is a clear sense that Wilson's animus towards people of color was firmly established in that moment.
But it's a losing battle to try to say this isn't what happened, because the production is so fabulous for the times. People had never seen film like this. The white audience loves it. This must be the true story because I see it on the screen. They had a very vulnerable population, just like we do now with social media. And so the trick is complete. They've bought into the propaganda, all of the rape scares, all of the black beasts in charge of government, and now it's the truth.
The Birth of a Nation was the cultural apex of Southern redemption, seeking to erase even the memory of the positive contributions and progress that black people had made during Reconstruction.
So this history of a black middle class that was aspirational had been completely lost. It's easier to think that those people never existed. It's easier to think that slaves had great fortune to be freed and it took 40 to 50 years to get an education and get land. That's not at all what happened. Reconstruction was actually a revolution that was undercut in the 1890s. It was undermined by a political scam, the likes of which the United States had never seen before.